reason, the computer just disconnected. I don't know what happened. But anyway, we're still here fighting for you guys because when we start something, we have to finish it. So let's carry on with the presentation. I'm gonna give a small review so we can do it again. My apologies. I'm really ashamed because the thing is that I didn't expect this issue to happen, but technology is like that. Sometimes we don't uh, we don't expect this type of things. I hope I have audio, so I'm going to carry on with the presentation so you guys um, can learn what I'm explaining. Okay, I'm going to share the screen and carry on with the presentation. Let me share it. My apologies. Uh, I can't do anything about it because it's technology. And okay, let's go. As I was saying, let me start from here. Slide. Wait. Slide from the custom. Well, let me see. Okay, here we are. Okay, I was talking about there is a relationship between the fat content and the moisture. Okay, so and this affect the stretching capacity of the cheese. For example, as I said before, Havarti and Parmesan may have the same fat content, but the sorry, I made a mistake. Havarti and Parmesan might have the same um, fat content. Sorry, the same level, yeah, see the same fat content, but different level of moisture. Therefore, um, they don't stretch the same. Havarti stretches more than Parmesan. Okay, for example, non-fat mozzarella had very low stretching capacity. Okay, they have a very low stretching capacity than Havarti because the moisture content, the fat content is lower. So Havarti stretches more because they have more fat, and non-fat mozzarella, even though mozzarella have more moisture, the fat content, because due to the fact that the fat content is low, the stretching capacity is low as well. So here in the Parmesan, the fat content of the Parmesan is lower, but but the fat content here is higher, so this cheese stretches more. So it's very important that you understand the fat content and the moisture. We have to have a lot, a balance between fat content and moisture. The idea is to have a reasonable fat content and a reasonable level of moisture as well. Okay, so we are making the cheeses. And also with the level of calcium. If I told you before that the level of calcium is important when we make cheese. When the cheese is young, the level of calcium is high. When the acidification starts to occur, this level of calcium starts to decrease. So if we have too much calcium, which is, for example, this type of cheese that we call a bread cheese, another cheese that has a lot of level of calcium is halloumi. So the cheese won't stretch. The other way around, or the opposite way around would be feta. Feta has zero level of calcium. It doesn't have calcium at all. So, or a very low level of calcium. Usually feta doesn't have calcium at all because when we are making feta, we have to wait for the pH to be 4.6. When the pH is 4.6, there is no calcium at all on the cheese. So in this way, in these levels, the cheese will not stretch either. So too much calcium, the cheese will not stretch. Too low calcium, the cheese will not stretch either. So to allow the cheese to stretch, it have a mid level of calcium, okay, and a mid level of acidification. Okay, so of course it will also depend from the fat content. If we have sometimes we have the correct level of calcium and correct level of acidity, but our mozzarella is too dry, so the stretching will be, will be hard because the moisture is too low. So we have to consider that when we made this type of cheeses. Okay. Okay. This is what I wanted to tell you. Sorry about the interruption. I'm really ashamed about it, but I can't do anything about it with the technology. It's just a lottery. But anyway, my idea is that you guys learn. Next year, I'm gonna tell you how to. Sometimes the cheese, when we are making pasta filata cheese, sometimes even when we have the right level of calcium, the right level of acidity, the cheese won't stretch. And it happens, as I said before, because we have maybe a low level of fat, a low level of moisture. But I'm going to tell you a secret how to overcome this issue. At the end of the movie, even though your cheese don't stretch, at the end of the movie, they will stretch. And I'm going to tell you how, because I'm going to explain you all the changes that happen to the cheese when they are ripening. So, but I'm gonna tell you in the next show, which will be next week. I hope I don't have these issues again with the platform. I hope not. And let's go with the Q&A. Okay. Let me go with the Q&A. And let's see how we are. Finish the screen. Okay, here we are. Okay, let me go. So I have here problem with the platform, and I'm really ashamed. Anyway, I have one question here from. This question is from Arturo. He says, "How do you coagulate your? I mean, no. How do you curdle your milk? Because when I make cheese, I get ricotta." Arturo Flores is saying. And the thing is that the question is in Spanish. I'm translating it simultaneously to English. How do you curdle your curd? Because what I get is ricotta. Well, the answer to this question, Arturo, is that your the problem is your milk. When you make cheese, not all the milk is good for making cheese. You have to the best milk to make cheese, raw milk, but sometimes raw milk is very hard to find, and it's not very safe to use raw milk if you're gonna make fresh cheeses. If you're gonna make fresh cheeses, you need to use pasteurized milk, but non-homogenized milk. Homogenized, especially if you're gonna make pasta filata cheeses. If you're gonna make pasta filata cheeses, if your milk is homogenized, forget about it. You're not gonna get mozzarella. Your milk should be non-homogenized. What do you mean by homogenized? Homogenized is a process when the milk is compressed by a lot of strength. I would say 3,000 squares, 3,000 pounds per square inch, something like that. So they put the milk in like in a container and press it up, and the milk passes through a membrane. This produces the fat globules to pass through the membrane, and there is a restructuring process of the milk, and they will regroup again, and then the milk will um, the fat content, which is when it's when it's non-homogenized, the fat will flow, but after the homogenizing process, the fat will be dissolved in the body of the milk and will not float anymore. So, and the companies, they produce, they make this process to make the milk more attractive to the buyer. So it's just something that the people who sell milk do. And but for cheese making, it's better to use non-homogenized milk. Of course, if you are using sheep milk, which is fully homogenized, that's a different story. But when you are using sheep milk, for example, you will not be able to make mozzarella because the milk is homogenized. So that you can make another type of cheeses anyway. So for pasta filata, non-homogenized cheese. For other type of cheeses, you can use homogenized cheese, homogenized milk. Okay. So let's go with another question. Well, this Cecilia is saying, "Hi, cheese doctor. My apologies. This is the first time I'm trying to make Oaxaca cheese, but when I heated the curd, it became like a cream. Um, I really didn't check the acidity, but when I drained the whey, I just heat them up. Would you please tell me what happens if I needed to allow the curd to rest for a while or something?" Well, look, the thing is that this process, what you did, is not the correct way to make cheese. See, so I understand from your question that you try to heat the curd, and when you heat it, it just became like a cream. That happens when you are heating too much. If when the heat is too high, when the heat is too high, it will melt the this is like epithelium that covers the casein, and we call it the free fat. So too much heat will dissolve the free fat and will expose the free fat, and it will go along your 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 pan, and therefore you will lose the mozzarella. So try to lower the level of heat. You have to heat at a speed of maybe 2 degrees per minute, 2 degrees Fahrenheit per minute. Okay, so to get the right temperature, you will need approximately 20-30 minutes. So you have to go really slow. Okay. Okay, another question from Max. Max Ho is asking here. Can I add more rennet if I don't get a clean break? Well, Max, yes, you can. You can add more rennet. Sometimes when we are making cheese, we put quite a few amount of rennet and the milk doesn't curdle accordingly. But you have to be careful. Okay. My suggestion: use the manufacturer's recommendations. Okay. So, but you can add more rennet. But if you add more rennet, your cheese might get bitter. But I'm gonna tell you a secret. If your cheese is bitter, you have to mask this bitterness by salting the cheese with a little bit more content. So put a little bit more salt, and in this way, the bitterness and the salt levels will level, and your cheese will not taste so bitter. So this is a secret that I'm telling you that I always use if I put too much rennet. And but in general terms, in theory, you shouldn't have this problem. Try to use non-homogenized milk, which is it has the correct level of fat, and with a level of protein 3.4 pretty much, and make your cheese use the normal way. Try to use the supplies recommendations about the amount to use, because it will depend on the concentration of your rennet. So you need to be careful. Okay. Another question is, let me see if I have someone here from the show has making any questions, because okay, not at all. Okay, let's go here with another question. Can I cut a cheese making recipe in pretty much just by half on of the ingredients? Yes, you can. Yes, you can, but f- only for the material for the materials. Okay. If you're going to make, for example, if your recipe says that you're going to use, um, you're gonna make a recipe for 10 liters of milk. To put an example, 10 liters of milk, and you need 1 gram of lactic culture. If you're gonna make 5 liters, you put five 500 milligrams or half a gram of the lactic culture, and reduce the level of salt and linearly the same way. Okay. However, if you're going to brine your cheese, you're going to salt it in brine. You have to reduce the level of exposure of the cheese into the brine, because it's going to be a smaller piece. So you need to be careful. Okay. Usually, to brine a cheese, we leave it. There are several criteria. There is one criteria that says the weight of the cheese, okay, in pounds, multiply by the height in inches. It will give you the time in hours. Okay. For example, if you have 1 pound of cheese, and your cheese is let's say 3 inches, you leave it you leave it 3 hours. Okay. 1 pound and 3 inches high, you leave it 3 hours. There's another criteria that says that leave it 1 day per kilo. This is in Argentina, but all of them are very subjective. You got to do it by experience. For example, I made the cabrales one that I was making, and I left it 1 day per kilo, because this is a blue cheese. It has a very high level of content, and I want it salty, so I left it. My cheese weighed 3 kilos. I left it 3 days into the brine, because I want a salty level, a salty cheese. But if you're gonna make a fresh cheese and you're gonna brine it, I would say use this criteria. Don't worry, it will tell. The experience will tell you what to do. Okay, you just need to make more cheese. Okay, let's go with another one. Hi, cheese doctor. My question is: should I skim the cream off the top of my raw milk before making mozzarella? And thank you. Look, if you skim the milk, if you skim the milk, your fat content will be reduced. And as I said before in the presentation, your cheese if your cheese doesn't have the right level of moisture, your cheese or your curd will not stretch accordingly. So you need to be careful. When I make mozzarella, I don't skim the milk. I leave it with the whole fat content. So my advice, because you're saying that it's raw, right? Right. Yeah, it's raw. Your milk is raw. So before you make the mozzarella, I would suggest pasteurize your milk, because if you're making mozzarella with raw milk, you might get sick. If your milk is not good enough, if the cows, you will get sick, because in the worst case scenario, in the best case scenario, your milk will have E. coli for sure. because in the farm the flies are flying around, and they just stop on the droppings of the cows and go to the milk or go to the Uber of the milk. So you need to be careful. So my advice, if you're gonna make mozzarella, pasteurize the milk. I always pasteurize the milk when I make mozzarella with raw milk. And use the same fat content. I mean, don't skim the milk, and you will have a beautiful mozzarella. Okay. Well, I reckon that's all, guys. My apologies again for the issue with the platform. I really didn't expect it, but it is what it is. We can't do anything about it. And I'll see you next week. Next week we will carry on with the with the topic about the mozzarella or the pasta filata cheeses. So how we can achieve, even though if our string doesn't stretch, I'll tell you the secret how we can achieve a very stretchy curd. Okay, so see you next week, and sorry about the
Quesitos en casa, fáciles de hacer son. El doctor quesero te enseña con sabor. Quesitos en casa, fáciles de hacer son. El doctor quesero te enseña con sabor. Quesos colombianos y venezolanos, todo hecho en tu casa, con sabor zuliano y calor humano. Los quesos en casa tienen vitaminas, rápidos de hacer en cualquier cocina. Tan fácil como pelar mandarinas. Quesitos en casa, fáciles de hacer son. El doctor quesero te enseña con sabor. Quesitos en